Good morning. I will be playing as our prelude um, from Blackbird Hills, which is by beloved American composer Amy Beach. She wrote this in 1922, and it's kind of an interesting take on a Native American tune. It's something that people wouldn't do nowadays. And it took me a while to kind of be with this and think about what she was trying to say, because the first part is very lighthearted, and it's a ring dance sung and danced by children of the Omaha tribe, and there's a pause. After that, hold your applause. It gets really dark. Um, it's she wrote, so just a little bit about Amy Beach. She was really very much into social justice and also into bringing music from various cultures all over the world, to her audiences, and she would translate it. She would Amy Beach her music, and it's like I said, it's something that people wouldn't do now with an arrangement, but it's wonderful. And anyway, so she wrote. This is for the darker, more tragic sounding part. She wrote that she pictured members of the tribe, this is a quote, looking sadly over the shoulders of the happy living children at play. And you'll hear that, and then it goes back to the children at play, and enjoy.
Thank you, Barbara, for always your bravery, your creativity, and your expertise. Welcome to everyone in person. Thank you for being here, and online. Thank you for being there. I'm Suzanne McQuaid, your service associate today, and we're happy to have Casey with us every time she can be with us. Summit is a liberal religious community bound by shared principles drawn from world religions, humanist teachings, nature, science, philosophy, and personal practices. We are a religion of love and inclusion. Our mission here at Summit is to build a more compassionate, just, and sustainable world. Centering thought. We Indians do not teach that there is only one God. We know that everything has power, including the most inanimate, inconsequential things. Stones have power. A blade of grass has power. Trees and clouds and all the relatives in the insect and animal world have power. We believe we must respect the power by acknowledging its presence, by honoring the power of the spirits in that way. It has become our power as well. It protects us. That was from the Lakota activist. And I didn't get any announcements this morning. So, okay, Mary.
So, next Sunday at 9 o'clock in the afternoon, we're having a very, not 9 o'clock in the afternoon, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, sorry, brain. After flower communion, next week's flower communion. So bring your flowers. It's going to be fun. Kids have planned a really neat service for you. And following that at 2 o'clock in the afternoon in the salon, Casey and I are inviting all of our youth and young adults to come for mocktail making and spring rolls. So a great way to start the summer. Casey, formerly a bartender, is going to bring mixology techniques to make mocktails, which is a lot of fun. Very, very trendy right now. And then I'm going to make good old-fashioned spring rolls. So we're inviting youth and young adults. Young adult means up to, what, 35? Is it still up to 35?
18 to 35.
And youth is
a young adult for another
anybody in the teen range. So if you're in that range, that's what we're going for. So thank you.
Thank you. Continued imagination around here. Land acknowledgement. We want to acknowledge that our fellowship resides on unceded Kumeyaay land. The Kumeyaay people have lived on this land for more than 10,000 years. It continues to be their home today. We recognize the abusive history of colonization in California and honor the legacy of the continuing presence of the Kumeyaay Nation. Thank you for being with us for a time of reflection and connection. We invite you to stay after the service for our community gathering, where you have a chance to give feedback to the speaker, share a joy or concern. And after that, you're invited for refreshments in the salon. Hi, Chris. Yes.
We are having some technical difficulties today, so we will not be able to share the lyrics. But all of our songs for today are in your hymnals here. So we can use the gray hymnal and the teal hymnal. I do want to note there is a typo. The Ancient Mother hymn is actually 1069, not 1060. So, but our first hymn will be in the gray hymnal, and then the next two will be in the teal. So, and then also our UU hymn and aspiration are in the bulletin. So.
That's actually going to work great. Just saying, because I wasn't trying not to bother the two of you because you were working under technical issues, but I was worried about the words, doing it the right number of times, and I won't be able to explain it to you. I'm sorry, you're holding me.
That's okay. It's not belting.
Okay.
We're good.
Chalice lighting. As surely as we belong to the universe, we belong together. We join here to transcend the isolated self, to reconnect, to know ourselves to be at home, here on earth, under the stars, linked with each other. And we thank you, Chris and Gabriel, for all your work over there. Whether the universe is helping you out or not today is fine. Thank you, Janet, for ushering. You, him, and aspiration. Old school with a piece of paper or in your book or in your memory.
Good morning, everyone. You can do better than that. Thank you. My name is Pastor Casey Marie Pandell. I am the minister here at Summit. I am a 34-year-old woman with shoulder-length-ish, purple-ish hair, reading glasses, a black dress, and that's not purple, green and black cover. Our reading today are words from Kathy Huff. Oh, whether it is your first visit or your 5,000th visit, I see that we have a few guests with us today. You are whole, you are holy, you are loved, and you are so welcome here, even when our tech doesn't work, even when we get tongue-tied, and even when we do things a little bit different. Praise the Sun, the Moon, and the Stars by Kathy Huff. Praise the sun, the moon, and the stars. Praise the ant, the tree, the shining leaf. Praise every child, large and small. Praise the one within us all. Praise the swimmers, the crawlers, and the creepers. Praise the flower and the winding weed. Praise each blade of grass and every dewdrop. Praise dark, moist earth. Praise rock, sand, and shoal. Praise wind, nature's breath. Praise those with fin and fur and finger. Praise the winged ones, the tiny ones, and all the ones that live unseen. Praise the brightest morning and the darkest night. Praise the prickly and the unpopular, the crow's cry and the beggar's sigh. Praise the dancers, the doers, the dreamers. Praise those that give, that love, those who heal. Praise to the wanderers, the weavers, the seekers. Praise the sounds of thunder and crashing waves and shouts for justice. Praise silence. Praise spirit. Praise all colors. Praise all acts of compassion. Praise all. Praise all. Praise all. Welcome to worship. And please join us in singing hymn 175 in your gray hymnal. We celebrate the web of life. Please stand as you are able, willing, as the Spirit moves you. We have words!
Oh, wow.
Fairly unfamiliar hymn, so I'm going to play it entirely through once.
And now is our joys and concerns portion, which I completely almost skipped. It's going to be one of those days today, you guys. That's okay. We'll get through it together. Our joys and concerns portion of our service is the time where we get to hold all of the big things in our lives, the big painful things and the big exciting things. Joys and concerns can be emailed or texted to me or the service associate throughout the week, or can be handwritten up near the chancel during the Sunday morning. All are welcome to light a candle in whatever we are celebrating or holding, whether we share it aloud or not. We have 3 candles lit today. The only one that I know of is my own candle of celebration for my colleague Angeline Jackson, who will be the new minister at Davis starting in the fall. She just celebrated her ordination yesterday in Pasadena, and it was a lot of fun to get to see one of our congregations come together and use this really big moment that we share together. For those of you that don't know, Unitarian Universalist congregations are the only people who can ordain a minister. So when a congregation chooses to do so, it's a really big celebration. So it was really delightful to get to see that for one of my beloveds. We know that not all joys and concerns are held aloud today. Whether spoken or unspoken, we hold them in our hearts. And now I would like to invite Mary Carter Vale. Mary Carter Vale. There's the,
Yes, I'm known as Mary Carter Vale, is one word. Or the what was it, the notorious MCV, they called me at camp. So, exactly, well, more like RBG. So I have a very special guest to introduce today. Remember last week I said we're going to have something new up here? We have something new. So I'd love to invite up Chris, the artist who created this masterpiece, so we can learn about it. All right, let's see. Hi, Chris.
Hi, everybody.
Can you hear it? Test, test.
Can anybody hear me?
There we go.
Oh, there we go.
Now you're hot. Your
Whoa.
mic's hot. Yeah, so Chris, what is your last name? I didn't get it in advance.
It's Chris Brooks.
Chris Brooks. Okay. So I have a couple questions for Chris, which he designed, which is awesome. So what gave you, I'm going to stand over here so you can point things out. Anybody wants to come closer, if the kids want to come closer to see, you can. What gave you the idea for this painting with so many religious symbols?
Well, I just wanted to convey in a picture or a visual representation unity and the importance of interconnectivity, and especially in the religious field, especially in nowadays, in the climate of the world and everything.
And what does the flower of life, I'm assuming that's this big, beautiful piece here. What does the flower of life and the different religious symbols mean or represent to you?
Well, the flower of life is a form of sacred geometry. And originally the flower of life, if you look it up, it's actually many concentric circles, not really the flowers that you see here. But I use that kind of template to place the flowers. So they are arranged in the way of the flower of life, which actually does contain the seed of life, the fruit of life, and the tree of life, all in one. If you look really closely at the design and the patterns interlocking. So it goes on forever, so it represents infinity and creation and life itself.
Now you can see how each petal interlocks with the next. It's really beautiful.
Thank you.
So how did you make this painting? What materials and colors did you use?
Well, it's acrylic on canvas. It's a 5 by 5 foot canvas. And I had to do a lot of different rough drafts just to get to this point. A lot of different, considerations on what to do and how to place and what colors to pick. But for the colors, I just wanted to go with something bright, positive, but at the same time, earthy and natural. So.
And it matches perfectly in this room. Chris hadn't seen this room and just saw it up today and was like, wait a minute.
Yeah, it blew my mind seeing it up like this.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. So what do you want people from different religions to feel when they see this painting?
Well, I just want to espouse the feeling of, connectivity and welcome and no fear and, actually feeling connected to everyone else.
Yeah.
So,
What personal experiences influenced you to create this artwork?
well, I've always loved the idea of creation. As an artist, I love creating ever since I was young. And really the flower of life being the symbol of creation, it was kind of a no-brainer for me. I was so excited to work on this. But
Yeah. And you, where's Suzanne McQuaid? Oh, there she's filming. Suzanne, you helped make this happen too. So we want to thank you so much for that. So Suzanne and Reese helped to make this happen. So.
Yeah, it was definitely a collaboration piece,
Yeah.
which actually fits perfectly with the theme. So
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So thank you so much, Chris, for this. Fun fact, Chris is also a baker.
that's
we
right.
talked,
that's
we
right.
talked a little culinary earlier.
Or food creation.
Yes. So it's really nice to see, most bakers, people eat our creativity. That now we have something that's real. So that we can have here and
Something that
enjoy.
lasts.
Something that lasts. That won't melt or go stale.
That's true.
It's absolutely beautiful. So thank you so much, Chris.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. All right, well, our kids are going to head back to RE, and we're going to be getting ready for the flower communion next Sunday, which I hope you will all bring flowers to and come to. There will be flower crown making, so it's going to be extra fun. So let's head off, and we're going to sing our UU Do Re Mi song, and I'm inviting all young folks who want to come back to RE to head on back. We're going to play in dirt. Play with dirt. You need a real marker? A green marker. This is where my classes are. This is where we do the fun stuff. That's perfect.
At least we always know that we can trust Mary to be appropriate if her mic is still hot, so. And please rise in mind, body, or spirit to join us in singing 1060. That's not right, it's 1069. 1069, thank you. In your teal hymnal.
Will everybody be able to see me as well if you're standing, or will you be able to see me better if you're seated? I'm thinking that maybe you need to be able to, probably want to, because I'm teaching something. So maybe you guys want to sit back down, if that's okay? Sorry.
Enjoy.
So this very, very, very cool drum, which belonged to Pat Brining, is Mary Carter Vale was kind enough to let me use this today. We're not using the piano because this is not piano music. This is a chant, and it is way more authentic to do it with a drum. And I wanted to just kind of give you guys this rhythm here. And I want to invite you, while we're doing this, to do this, to something called patching. You tap your lap. Observe. Come on, you guys. Okay, we're going to do that throughout. And what I'm going to do is basically break down the melody for you. So it's, the first part is, Ancient Mother, I hear you calling. Now sing with me. Ancient Mother, I hear you calling. And then it goes, just listen. Ancient Mother, I hear your song. And now with me. Ancient Mother, I hear your song. And then, like the first one again, just listen. Ancient Mother, I feel your laughter, ancient mother. I feel your laughter. And then like the second part of the tune, ancient mother, I taste your tears. With me? Ancient mother, I taste your tears. So we're going to sing this through twice and use your body percussion along with my drum. Ready? Ancient mother, I hear you calling. Ancient mother, I hear your song. Ancient mother, I feel your laughter. Ancient mother, I taste your tears. One more time. Ancient mother, I hear you calling. Ancient mother, I hear your song. Ancient mother, I feel your laughter. Ancient mother, I taste your tears. Thank you.
It's always nice to get to call back to one of our Summitarian ancestors, so having one of Pat Breining's instruments felt very appropriate this week. Please join me in a time of silent prayer, meditation, or reflection as I read words from Lucy Bunch entitled Prayer to Mother Earth. We pray to you, Mother Earth, with gratitude for holding and sustaining love, for the air, water, and soil that feed us, for the mountains and rivers and oceans that calm our spirits, for loving and supporting all beings and all creation. We pray to you, Mother Earth, with humility. Help us to remember our place in the great web of life. Help us to remember that we are but a part of this great web. Help us to remember that we must do our part for all life. We pray to you, Mother Earth, for forgiveness, for our ignorance and willful disregard of the damage that we have done to you, the air and the waters, and the soil and the life of this beautiful planet. We pray to you, Mother Earth, for fortitude to uphold our part in reversing the damage we have caused, for fortitude to make and sustain a commitment to do our part to help heal the planet. Mother Earth, in gratitude and humility, we ask that you hold us and sustain us as we strive to live in connection with you and all life. Amen. As we begin to round out our congregational year, today we are rounding out our journey on liberation theology. The theologies we have explored this year touched on how the Christian faith has been reframed in ways that people from marginalized communities have found deeply meaningful and liberatory. I think sometimes, if we heard it right, sometimes there's a little bit of a feel-good vibe to that. That is not necessarily the case with Indigenous American liberation theology. Indeed, there is nothing inherently Christian about this liberation theology. I wouldn't suggest it to be anti-Christian, but it's not terribly far of a stretch to consider it antithetical to Christian theology. Perhaps because of this, there isn't a whole lot of what we might call academic literature on the subject, which I'm sure a lot of you are going to be thrilled about today. Where previous liberation theologies made a very clear distinction between and the ties to activism and scholarship, as far as a colloquial native theology in the United States goes, these two things are actually very deeply entwined, and in some ways aren't really scholarship focused at all. The people writing about native theologies are the activists who seek to reclaim Indigenous identity and sovereignty for all Indigenous people, no matter how far removed they have become. We simply cannot have this discussion without making it explicit that imperialism, colonialism, and the traumas of both are inherently a part of this native and native feminist theology we will discuss today. In some ways, these theologies are a direct response to the horrors inflicted on Indigenous Americans by the United States. Scholarship in this particular theology, as I mentioned, is a little thin, and depending on who you ask, it's probably a good thing that it is. 2 source essays were used for research on today's sermon. The first, American Indian Theology by Osage scholar George Tinker, and Native Feminist Theology by Andrea Smith. Tinker's essay, though the shorter of the two, sets the stage quite well, stating that part of what makes this theology historically important has much to do with the erasure of the old ways, as he puts it, and the cultures of Indigenous populations that were eradicated in favor of Christian assimilation. Indeed, Tinker shares that in the majority of instances, Native folks becoming Christian did so out of solace. In Roxanne Dunbar Ortiz's The Indigenous People's History of the United States, it tells that assimilation was a method of survival, with First Nations people choosing the way of the white man as a desperate grab for life over death. It wouldn't be too far of a leap to assume that conversion to Christianity was just another type of survival mechanism, with less and less opportunities for people to practice or even be brought up and aware of their ingrained native spiritualities, with fewer and fewer people able to participate in the ceremonies of old. Interestingly, Tinker tells us that there were multiple examples of Native clergy who converted to Protestantism while still maintaining religious and cultural ties to their roots. Celebrated examples include Pequot minister William Apess, who was a vocal critic of American colonialization, and Mohegan minister Samson Occam, who sought to serve other Native people while working diligently to maintain an authentic connection with the traditions he was raised with, while also criticizing colonialism, racism, and the poor treatment from Puritan founder Eleazar Wheelock. Additionally, Ojibwe and Mississauga pastor Peter Jones not only served as a pastor and in a pastoral care capacity for his community, but continued serving as his tribe's chief while he did it, upholding the old traditions from Ojibwe culture to such a degree that it eventually caused a fracture within the community he served. Oglala Lakota Sitting Bull reported that many Lakota tribes converted simply to satisfy the colonizer, still continuing their own traditions in secret in spite of the Episcopalians or Catholics that they proclaimed to be. Even the most celebrated Episcopal convert, Philip Deloria, who was storied to have served the church faithfully, according to his grandson Vine Deloria, still maintained traditional culture and spirituality, and even while serving the church, leaned heavily into the teachings from his medicine man father. Tinker shares that these points, including the history of boarding schools, to illustrate the violence of colonialism, and noting that it is central to doing theology in a holistic way for First Nations people. Doing theology is a bit of a loaded term, considering that Tinker contends that theology is not a natural category for analysis for Indian people at all, calling it a European category imposed on Indians. Scholars in the 1970s even argued whether there is any such thing as an Indigenous conception of deities or religion at all, with a strong argument being made that terms like religion and faith, as wholly imperialist terms that colonized communities have no basis of understanding for. Most notably, whereas many of the theologies that we have discussed this year have found liberation and solace in a deep way by seeing themselves as God adjacent, Indigenous people are unable to see themselves in such a light, especially in relation to Christianity. Cherokee scholar William Baldridge explains this by arguing that Indian people are more alike to the Canaanites than the Israelites, explaining that the Exodus can be interpreted as a story only of conquest, with the Indians seeing themselves as exiled by the conqueror. His hope is that Native Christians may play a big role in transforming America's Christianity at large, but to do so will require embracing traditional values and spirituality to do so. Tinker outlines 4 important points to guide the understanding of Native spirituality. 1, that First Nations people are communal, both in social structure and in their worldview, which is in clear opposition to what he calls the radical individualism that emerged out of European modernity. 2, they are oriented not by time and dates, but by places and space. So a Lenten season may mean little, but a sacred space may mean everything. 3rd, harmony and balance are directly related to this spatial understanding. A ceremony for balance and benefit balances and benefits all, not just the individual. And finally, he notes that the Indian understanding of balance and harmony rely entirely on relationship and interdependence, not just with other people, but with all parts of the natural world. All life is sacred. When we understand this Native framework, we can understand better how the Western conception of theology can be a tricky way of understanding spirituality. It simply doesn't exist for a First Nations community. But Tinker's primary concern, however, is twofold. First, the colonizers' view of the Native was based around not documenting their rich histories and ceremonies for their beauty and sacredness, but documenting them for the proof of their savagery, their ineloquent nature, a perspective that is still pervasive today. Secondly, he feels that Native Christianity over the centuries has slowly bent towards the West, noting a marked lack of community in favor of the individual, something Tinker considers Christianity continuing to play a significant part in the genocide of the Indian people. It may no longer be a physically violent way that it once was, but it is no less spiritually violent. I mentioned a second essay, and you might have noticed that I didn't indicate a First Nations identity for Andrea Smith when I introduced it. This essay brought up an interesting ethical dilemma for me. I had spent hours reading and researching and using these essays, and when I went to start writing, I noticed a problem. Despite the deeply interesting insight and really wonderful things that weren't necessarily counter to Tinker's words, but pushed up against the white supremacy culture that Smith sees even in Tinker's ideals. Smith shares that upholding the tradition, in her view, is akin to upholding the colonizers' patriarchal foundations, and asks the question, if we did differently before imperialism, can't we yet still do differently now? She states conflicting perspectives where feminism is necessarily a product of westernization, with some female First Nations activists feeling that one cannot be both native and feminist, while others feel that is simply too reductionist of a point of view. Smith also shares that liberation cannot be obtained without examining how racism, sexism, and colonialism continue to play into academia and politics, and that the question of theological legitimacy is not without issue, as it requires a certain monolithic ideal of the marginalized community being discussed. Most importantly, an overarching idea in her essay was simple. An outsider has no right defining who is Indigenous, nor what their spirituality entails. It was a really rich educational reading, and I was really excited to bring it all to you today. The book that I've been using for my research all year, Liberation Theologies in the United States, was published in 2010. And the theologies that we've learned about have continued to evolve over the last decade. In the case of this essay, there is a much bigger problem. You see, in 2015, Andrea Smith was loudly pronounced to be a fraud, having spent her entire career proclaiming Cherokee heritage. There is no proof that Andrea Smith is Cherokee. Multiple sources have outed her, from fellow academics stating that she has admitted to them that she has found no evidence stating her claim, to Cherokee genealogist David Cornsilk sharing that Cherokee heritage is exceptionally well documented, and that both times Smith hired him to find proof, he found none, apart from her own proclamations. Some have called her the native Rachel Dolezal, who, if you recall, was a white woman who made her career thanks to claiming to be a biracial black woman. She also began her career claiming to be First Nations. In the decades since, Smith still claims to be Native, with her full-blood sister Justine claiming not only Cherokee, but Ojibwe heritage. So suddenly, Smith's essay asserting that outsiders cannot identify and cannot tell an insider who's who is a lot muddier. If Smith is indeed, colloquially speaking, a pretendian, she has benefited academically and financially from the lie her entire career, and often over actual First Nations academics. If she has been fraudulent, her scholarship and activism, no matter how sound, are harmful to actual First Nations people, and it makes it far more difficult for them to legitimize their work in a white society. Ethnic fraud is an extreme example of cultural appropriation, and I hope it is salient enough why there has to be a clear understanding of the difference between appropriation and appreciation, and why we need the distinctions. But it's pretty gross to see what Navajo journalist Jacqueline Keeler calls settler self-indigenization, reaping the benefits for pretenders, particularly at the expense of the well-being of actual Indigenous people. In the face of understanding this controversy, I debated whether or not to even indicate there had been any scholarship in this realm, as she's one of the only names in it. At the time of her writing, there was brief mention of one Navajo scholar, Jennifer Dennett-Dale, as the only other person. I wasn't sure how much this ideology can even be trusted. After all, Smith quotes her own sister's theological scholarship in it. I decided, however, that it was more important as a teaching moment to be able to say, yes, she made some important points, such as noting that the Cherokee Bible is a direct translation from Hebrew and is not sullied by English and Western interpretation. We can also say What Smith does and has been doing is wrong and unethical. Both things can be true at the same time. In the end, I think the most important takeaway from these essays, theologically speaking, because we're a religious community, so theology matters, by and large, the Christian versions of theology are insufficient for many indigenous populations in the United States. The Western proclivity for individualism and for the betterment of self, which is a deeply Unitarian belief, is in opposition to the traditional focus on interdependence and community found in various ways in First Nations communities. If there's anything that we as a Unitarian Universalist community can take away from this, it's that more than one of our principles reflect the spirituality found in Native American communities. Though we really should ask ourselves, how can we honor our own identities within those principles without claiming their perspectives and their identities as our own? How do we embrace and embody a genuine interdependence without stealing the ceremonies, traditions, and sacred objects of First Nations communities? Where can the boundaries of Western thought lean into and learn from Indigenous spirituality while still creating our own holistic explorations that do not depend on claiming anything that cannot be called ours? They're big questions to consider. So may it be, and amen.
Thank you, Casey. We are a fellowship supported entirely by the generosity of our members and friends. We appreciate our faithful pledgers who keep up their monthly contributions. If you would like to support Summit today, our ushers will come around to collect your donations. Thank you, Barbara.
I'll be playing a jazz trifle by Zenobia Powell Perry, who has both African American and Native American heritage. This piece is from 1986, when she was in her 80s.
And please rise in mind, body, or spirit to join in singing hymn 1051 in the Teal hymnal, We Are.
And I'm wondering if you guys can do me a favor over here, since the words are working now and I wasn't able to ask my question. I need to know how many times we're singing this, because in the Teal hymnal, for each child that's born a morning star rises, that repeats. Can I see the next slide, please? Okay, we are our grandmother's prayers. Okay, that's good. Onward. All right, wisdom of ages. And then we go back to grandmother's prayers, Spirit of God. Next one, please. I'm so sorry. Okay, no. Okay, we are going to repeat something. Can we go back to slide 4, please? You know what? It's going to be too confusing. We're going to skip the repeat. We're just going to do it as it is up there. But if I can't see that and play, so we'll just wing it.
Wow, it's going to be great. This is why we do things live, right? One more time. You guys did it. You made it through an entire series of liberation theology. You guys learned basically like an entire graduate course about liberation theology. Good job. No, seriously, good job. That was a lot to sit through. I hope what you've taken from that series, those of you who have been able to follow the transition, even if this is your first one, it's important to remember that the experiences and the perspectives of theologies that are different than ours are necessary to this interdependence. We can say it until we're blue in the face, but until we understand it, we cannot understand each other. We have to understand that our individual experiences are as necessary to our spirits as they are to connecting to each other. When I talk about appropriation versus appreciation, that's not to say that we cannot enjoy these things. I'm asking that you reframe how you relate to them and find the commonality in between how you see things and how others do. That is the heart of this kind of faith community. That is what Unitarian Universalists talk about when they say the center of our faith is love. Without understanding this, there is no love. But with love, we can always find our way. Amen, shalom, salam, namaste, ashe, and blessed be. Go now in peace. May the light within you be a blessing to the world.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth and warmth of community or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. And they'll be extinguished. There'll be a bathroom break, and then please return for a community gathering. Or if you can't wait for your coffee.
Closing circle song.
Oh, whoa. Sorry, everyone.
Please rise to join us for our closing circle song. It's just one of those days. That's okay.
Wait, there you go.